All right, here we are at Tactical Tuesday. What do people have cooking? Aubrey.
I don't have much today. I think I want to connect maybe with Quentin about the test server, but I have enough to move forward on that project. And the only other, I had one question about, I guess like the AL baseline questions. For those who have updated like new wizard at the beginning of the summer, um, are they okay when it's not, when you guys are making changes and that haven't been pushed? I just like every week I encounter where it needs to be something, I need to update the dev server for something. I'm getting an error because it's not updated on the dev server, but I don't know if that's because I'm working on old stuff or if it's that the dev server is being updated.
I think what I hear you saying is that when things are updated on GitHub, it doesn't seem to be making it automatically to some of the servers. And so there's always this server or that server or whatever that has an error simply because the packages are out of date.
Yes, but my question is, it because my interview package that I'm working on are old? And does that protect the new cohort? Because my concern is that the new cohorts are like working on an error, not realizing that they need to reach out because it's coming from the server and not something that's coming from their interview.
As in something that comes from the basic questions and the interaction of the packages.
Yes. And the new cohort all has, the most updated, it goes directly into AL basic questions rather than the old ones from last summer that I've been working on. So I don't know if this is specific to me or something that I would want to just talk to the group about. If you're getting an error, you don't know where it's coming from, it could be the server. And this might be a bigger question.
I mean, that does feel like generally a bigger question of like,
okay.
Yeah, the way DocAssembly works is really hard to tell unless you know like either your interview really well or like the base questions really well. It's really hard to tell like what's causing the issue. Is it like, oh, base questions changed a variable name that I was like using that is no longer there, or is it like or is it something completely else that like I sent the wrong data to like base questions and it's not really like base questions fault, but you'll have to fix in your own interview. And so that's just really hard to tell by default.
Okay.
I know for your experience specifically, Aubrey, I think the only time I remember having was like the very first time where there was just an issue with sorry, there was an issue with like MA virtual port that was changed, but most of that shouldn't need to be changed anymore. And I guess
I think, well, one thing is that regardless of like, I mean, one thing is that you can have errors that are in basic questions just from being an error in basic questions, and then it will get updated. And I mean, like some of these issues are, this was done because there was an error in basic questions, but it just hasn't been updated various places, or we are finding an error in basic questions and it will be, needs to be fixed. But I think really what this speaks to is, regardless of whether it's going to happen with new or old packages, there needs to be a process by which all these servers get updated, either manually by us every time a release is made, or a patch is made or something. We need to make sure to go to all three servers, or just the testing in the dev server or whatever, or these need to be automated, right? Which we were trying to do with putting stuff on PyPy. Is that right?
I do not think PyPy stuff was planned to automatically update like DocAssembly servers. And I don't really think it should.
Sorry, with automated releases. I thought that was a way for.
Well, it was never going to be automated. It was always going to be someone runs a script, and it's a script and it's everything in one place, instead of having to like make a GitHub release and also update the and like
Yeah,
add
yeah,
the
no,
change on
I
everything.
mean, I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
saying there is something that makes that process easier. Was my
Yes.
understanding was
And
we were
that's-
trying to make something that makes the process easier.
Yeah,
I think
and
that was on the
Go ahead.
publishing side. Yeah. This is on the actually implementing the, but I
Mhm.
think so. I think that we're in agreement that we should come to, when we do a new release, it should go on the dev server and accompanyingly
Probably both the
move
testing
over
and
as
dev
after
server.
testing. But I think that the short-term and always valid thing is remind people that if they're having a problem, be it an error or otherwise, that they can't resolve in a short amount of time, that they should be asking the question about it. So that not to be like to push everything off on that, but that is meant to catch as a general catch-all. So and so maybe that's an important thing to remind people. It's like, it's not just because you might be having a hard time finding it. It might be because there's no way you can find it. So you need to ask the question, and it's not bad that you're asking the question because you didn't do the work. Sometimes the questions it can be impossible for you to solve without asking questions. So reminding people that asking questions is really important, not just so that they don't do more work than they have to, but there might actually be it might be insolvable without asking the question.
And they're also helping other people.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And they're also helping other people by asking the question and
I do think we do need to improve it, because I've seen this happen several times where like the fix has been made, it just got updated to the test server and never the dev server, or the other way around. Like, I think both those things we should make both those things happen.
I guess the other thing about like that actually gets in the way of this sometimes is that like releases and trying to actually release stuff onto the dev and test server makes it like, I feel like that's more of the issue of like the fixes will be in there, but we'll have been like sometimes those changes were like in the middle of sprints and we were wrapping up the sprint, and so we weren't going to like push like the changes we had made because there were still like 1 or 2 commits, and then we were going to release and push them all at once. And that's also, but that sort of goes in the way of like, oh, we make a 1 commit fix and we push it immediately to dev and test. Like those are different workflows, and they both work well, but they don't work super well together.
So I think we need to have, since Quentin's the tech lead, I think we need to have him in on the decision making for this.
Sure.
But I think there might be a distinction between I think it's easy to say the releases, once we get to the point of a release, that those should all be there, but there might be more subtlety in the in-between space. But the other thing we can all agree on is that when someone has a problem, and this actually solves, to the extent that it's an individual developer having an issue, having them ask the question will help them get to the answer. And that's the thing we need to just reiterate to the culture, is ask questions when something goes wrong. Or when something goes wrong and you can't find an answer.
Yep. Okay, thank you. That is it's helpful for me personally, and I will make sure to bring it up and stand up with the whole crew.
Yeah, it's important to remember that not asking questions is not just because like, I know sometimes people feel like they don't want to ask questions because they feel like they should do the work, right? But the point is like, you might not be able to do the work, so you got to ask the question.
Right. I'm gonna steal that
quote. Or reframe it as the work is asking the question. And if it's something someone can point you to, someone will point you to. All right. Other things maybe about general structuring or how people are going. People were going to start making. I mean, I know not much is because of the holiday. It's not like there's actually been a day in between the last time we talked. So probably not much to.
I don't have much. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Michelle.
Improving, not a stand-up thing. How are we going to introduce tests into the mix? It doesn't necessarily need to be with students, but I mean, I just want to know what that procedure is gonna look like as I prepare.
Depends on what you mean by tests.
Yes.
Automated, integrated tests.
So you specifically mean like GitHub action stuff that runs when you push commits.
What's a better way to phrase that? A better, because obviously
just saying
automated
automated
integrated
tests.
tests did not
Yeah.
work.
Yeah,
Okay.
saying
No, it
automated
did.
tests.
It did work, but you didn't say that first. You just said test.
No, I know, but then I did, and then it didn't seem
And
clear
also-
either.
then I think that's
Yeah.
right. No, I think that.
And I also
that-
like, I
that
guess like the
clarifies.
other side of this is like, I wasn't sure if you meant like getting everyone like the process of writing those automated tests, or if it was just, we're going to start running automated tests on things.
Like what's the process going to be like once we are getting people, like how are we going to get it from me writing tests to other people writing tests? I just need, like, as I'm planning on moving
It depends
that
on what the process,
forward.
what the final process looks like for the writing of tests, right? So we had talked
Okay.
last time about two classes of tests, right? Like the simple ones that could just sort of be sort of dumb tests that could just run to make sure things are working, and you produce something and help it. And it didn't require a scenario to be written of any type or a flow or whatever we're calling the path. Those I think we want to move to just being actual automatic tests that exist and just trigger. To your second question about how do we get it so that you're not the only one writing those workflows or the paths, that depends upon what the authoring process now looks like, right? So ideally,
So
we
there's,
want
yeah. I mean, do we want to go into that, or is that something we want to discuss another time, or like, what does that?
Personally, I don't have, sorry, go ahead.
let's just pin it now. Let's go through the rest of this, and then if we have any more time between now and the end of the tactical,
Sure.
we'll address it there. And
Let's
we
do
probably
it.
won't finish it, but that can at least be our plan.
Sure.
All right, other tactical things.
No, I'm done.
All right, Bryce.
I don't have any tactical things, which was what I was just going to say 2 seconds ago.
I did notice that there's now the I saw the release for the next build came through with the webhook in the Teams, which I thought was nice.
Yeah, Quentin actually set that part up. I had I think he essentially just actually set up the webhook that it does publish to things, or publish to channels that people see now.
What channel does it publish to right now?
The assembly line channel.
Cool.
And it was, I think Quentin just did a patch, and so he didn't like do bigger things than that. But yeah.
So very cool.
I guess that's an update of if Quentin's got that running.
Yeah, I thought that was nice to see. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Caroline.
I can't get my camera working.
Aw.
I think it's because I joined Zoom as the wrong person, and then I have to restart my camera. So I'm just going to be, a black square for now. I don't think I have anything tactical. I feel like I forgot to say something on Friday. It's one of these things I wake up in the middle of the night and I think, oh, I forgot. Now I can't remember what it was. So
on Friday, you had mentioned in the that you were something about someone working in the court with UX people around the 209A.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think I talked about that. It was just that she's going to be making recommendations. And I said, well, could you make one recommendation be linked to the 209A interview?
I think she's spoken with several of us now at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like she talked to Quentin as well. So, yeah.
And Michelle, I think.
Did she talk to you, Michelle?
Did she? Don't remember talking to anyone from the court system.
No, she's not in the court.
Know.
She's from Bentley. About UX. I can't remember. It's not about UX, but anyway. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Whatever.
I'd be interested in talking to someone. Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything.
Oh no, it was Aubrey. I'm sorry, I was misremembering that.
I didn't talk to anyone either.
Oh no, it wasn't Aubrey. Where was the thread? I'm just looking at the most recent thread.
Quentin spoke to her. That I know that's the last.
Yeah, but that was part of the thread on channels that was in response to someone else who had said it.
Oh. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't think I have anything.
Oh, it was just you, Caroline. It was
Yeah.
not just you. It was you. It was an echo of, we're echoing
Yeah.
things. Okay.
I'm just
Doing fine.
in the mode of screaming because it looks like all our funding is being cut right, left, and center. So I'm just like in
Oh,
another world.
so sorry.
But I did find out that 39, this you might find this interesting. So 39% of low income Massachusetts residents speak a language other than English at home. Now, the census has another topic called speaks English less than very well or something like that. And I haven't been able to get, that's a special query you have to do of census data. But I think that's pretty striking, 39%.
Hmm.
Speak a language other than English at home, which implies that there are enough people in that home that don't speak English very well. Maybe not, but that's a pretty high percentage. And our translation budget it doesn't exist for next year.
Mhm.
So that's what I've been doing since, last week, focusing on writing about why we need money for various things. So
Yeah.
that's me.
I'm sorry to hear that. Michelle, why don't we try to focus what it is you can share in 10 minutes about the authoring process.
10 minutes. So first of all is the setup process, for which we have an interview that I need to update, but that's good to remember. So we have an interview that takes you through setting up the tests for your repository. Then there is, right now you do have to add a file to get like a very basic, does this interview run test. You need to author a file yourself. There are instructions out there. I don't know if they're sufficient. I don't know if any of the instructions are sufficient until I get to try them with someone. Then there is, authoring like more complex tests, which is the same thing, except for you write more stuff. And there is some documentation that isn't published and visible on the documentation site yet, but it is there if you know the link. So like it's not in the sidebar, but it's in the link.
Yeah. Well, so that makes it clear. Well, then there are at least, so it goes back to sort of our two different types of testing. So there are actions that need to be done for just the sort of, does this work? I don't know, let's call it level 1 testing, the stuff that's going to be, just to run it through and doesn't require any writing of any paths. And then there's the authorship. I think maybe the next logical step would be, Aubrey, if you took one of the things that was ready for testing, and maybe went through it with, so choose a group that's ready for testing. And then if you, and first, maybe just you and Michelle run through how do you add this to just any old generic repo? And then you can have that can provide like a little bit of feedback, dry run, Michelle, for you right there with Aubrey's bit. But the goal will be that to get it to the right place where then we could assign it as a task for one of the other groups who's ready for testing, just to put it on as like, okay, so you've gotten to where you think testing is, or you've gotten to the point where like you're producing a thing on the end, because that's when you would do this. It sounds like maybe the workflow would be when you're building your interview, you get it to the point where you think like it's producing viable output. You're still going to edit and polish and all sorts of stuff. You would then just set up the very minimal level 1 testing. And then you go through and you do your polishing, your SME feedback, blah, 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 et cetera. And then you'd set up, your level 2 testing with writing some scenarios. Does that sound like the envisioned workflow?
Sure. It could also, so Aubrey, I would like to hear from Aubrey because she saw some of the documentation. She and I went through it, and she has more of a sense of like where the challenges would lie. And if I'd be more interested in your perspective if that sounds reasonable, Aubrey.
Well, can you remind me, is the goal for this to be all of the testing that they do or the main testing? Just,
The goal is for this to be really part of the testing.
okay.
And there are also two subparts to this sort of automated testing. One that's just we make sure it still runs through, that gets tested every time you do a push to GitHub to make sure you didn't break anything, right? And then there's the more complicated, make sure you didn't break anything with like some specific path or logic flow.
Okay. I mean, I think that with that in mind, it is reasonable. And I like the idea of doing it before it's kind of polished, etc. Because once you get into like the matrix testing, I think that it's kind of, you're in a different mindset. And so
Yeah.
doing that earlier rather than after is the right time to do it. And I also think that there's some groups that would be interested in installing it now, even before they're really totally ready for testing, just because theirs is so complicated that it actually might help now.
I think for now,
Okay.
we want to focus on are just the like what we're calling this level one, which is just the like the, okay, I've gotten something that produces output. I want to have something so that while I'm doing all my modifications and I push to GitHub, I know that it passed this little test.
You
Yeah.
can write a partial test, by the way, that tests
Mhm.
like the first screen or the first three
Yeah.
screens, or so like if you're settled on, you're like, these are going to be my first,
Yeah.
3 screens.
I think-
you can just test those. I'm just
From-
letting you know, I'm not changing the
Yeah.
plan. That sounds
Yeah.
like a good
Oh, no,
plan
no,
to
no.
me. I do want to say that to set up the test, people need to know things like the login for the testing account and like a GitHub token. So, and I'm just thinking through some of this stuff. Like often it's hard to think through until you're actually sitting down to do something. So this is helping me a bit, but like they need to be able to fill in the GitHub token, or we need to figure out how to do an organization token.
Yeah. So
But-
Michelle, when you and I do a dry run, we'll encounter things like that, and we'll write down the steps on how to get that stuff, whether or not that means just giving it to them on our
Mhm.
end, being like, ask someone from your organization for it, or just telling them how to find it, things like
Right.
that. Because
Yep.
I have the interpreter request, I think it will be ready after Teaching Tuesday today, so we could try it with that one.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
So yeah, so I
Yeah.
think the thing would be for Aubrey and Michelle, for you to jump on the call, go through the minimum necessary to set up that first level testing without any of the partial test stuff, just the automated ones. And then refine the documentation, all the steps there. We might then revisit and think about, as Michelle was saying, maybe we want to figure out how to do an organizational token. I think we also need to think carefully about if we have this, testing account, what are, Michelle, what are some of the permissions that testing account has to have and utilize?
Just a developer account. It just needs to be able to make a project and
right.
pull from GitHub.
All right.
Yeah, it might have slightly more privileges on the GitHub side, but actually, no, I don't even think that might necessarily true. Like there's a chance, but
No, it does need.
Well, not anything more than like a student would have to write to the GitHub repo. It might
not
have
sure.
write access to all the GitHub repos, or might need write access to all GitHub repos in the organization, but I don't think it would need to be an admin, right?
It would have to be an admin because it has to set secrets.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we do need to think carefully about how we
Which doesn't necessarily mean like, it doesn't necessarily mean making an account that has GitHub, has write access. If that's what
Mhm.
people are thinking, we don't need a GitHub account that has write access or a DocAssembly account that has write access. What we need is someone who can make a token, because all it needs is an admin token to identify you as an admin who is sending in secrets. So all the person would do is they would
Right.
have this GitHub token, and unless they know how to use the GitHub API, they're not going to know how to do anything more with it than
Right.
just.
Well, I'm just wondering
So,
is if
but
we
it
have
couldn't be.
to,
It couldn't be like in a Google Doc.
yeah, I'm wondering if there might be I think, well, we don't have time to game this out yet, but you can still have the conversation about Aubrey about all those bits. I think we might want to think about, but we're obviously gonna have to think about what that token generation process looks like and how to share that token. It might be nice if we could come up with a way that, since you said this is being done through it, you fill out an interview about the form, that maybe there's some way that we can, on the back end, tie the token to that interview in a way that doesn't require the developer, in this case, the students, to actually have to enter the token. Maybe there's some back end way we can administer that. Just so that we, as you said, don't have a situation where like there's a token floating around on a Google Doc somewhere or in a chat log somewhere.
I mean, it would have to be available on.
Yeah, but we could make it maybe available within the development server, right? So just in a way that was, I don't know what the solution looks like yet. I'm just
Yeah.
spitballing, because we do want to avoid this situation where there is a token that's floating around. So
Yeah. Good to discuss.
so
this.
yeah, that's the next nut to crack. But you can have that initial demo right now and figure that out and get that documentation ready. And then once we figure out how we want to do that,
Maybe
we'll
Aubrey, you and I could. Is interpreter notice just you, or is that someone else's too?
I took over it.
Okay.
I don't know.
So-
Quinton's.
I think when you're testing through it, I think we'll be fine with you being able to do that. But we want to come up with a more general.
Or
more
setup
generalizable method.
might be an admin. You know, the person who sets up might be an admin.
Yeah, it might be the setup. That might be the way to do it. But go through, get a sense of it. If it's a very simple setup, then maybe running that. I like to offload if it doesn't have to be. If we can share the load, I always like that. But go through,
me
get
too,
your impression.
For sure.
All right, we'll stop recording this and we'll move to stand up. Any other? I think the fact